Okay, got another little audio tool here arrived in the post. This is called the Hades. It's an analog bass synthesizer by Dreadbox. Comes fairly highly rated. It's pretty cheap for what it appears to be, and at least the preview sounds that I've listened to online sound really good. So let's get it out the box and see what we can do with it. Okay, kind of flimsy little outer casing there. Let's make sure that's well out of the way. Okay, now, pretty nondescript white box here. Let's have a look. Okay, well, I've got the usual selection of stickers and cross promotion, and then what have we got in here in the box itself? Straight to the action. Oh, a little bit of bubble wrap there to protect the top, and if I just lift this up, there we go. Really rather nice looking little box, that. Immediately, of course, the back panel is always going to give us some indication as to what might be possible with it. This one has a mono output, which is fine. It's a bass synthesizer, no real need for it to have a stereo output. And it has a MIDI in, and that's it. I mean, apart from the power, there's no other apparent I/O on the back panel. However, on the front panel here, alongside all of these rather fabulously big, chunky, very friendly knobs, we have got a selection of small ports, and this synth is kind of a semi-modular port, a semi-modular synth. So there's some inputs and some outputs here, and there's an ability to do a little bit of patching. I believe also in here we have, yes, power adapter, so we can get that plugged in, and yeah, it's just a selection of various universal power plugs. Oh yes, and we get one solitary patch cord, which will come in useful, I'm sure. Right, so let's close this box up, stick it to one side. Okay, so here's the Hades. Let's get it plugged in and see what it can do. First, let's give it a bit of power. Have to come this way a little bit with it. Immediately we've got the powers come on. There's no actual switch, it just comes immediately on, and there's the LFO LED indicating the rate of the LFO, so that's the only indicator really on here that it's alive, but that looks good. So now we're going to need a MIDI cable and an audio cable. It looks like a standard jack, so let's get those cables and plug it in. Okay, so these are the two cables that we need. Here's the audio lead, here's the MIDI lead. Let's start with the MIDI. Now this device only receives MIDI in, it doesn't transmit MIDI, so that makes our selection of ports very straightforward. We're going to go out of the MIDI output on the audio MIDI interface here into the Hades, and then we've got a simple unbalanced mono jack cable here to handle the audio output. I'm going to go in input 1 on my sound card, and I'm going to go out of the rather sturdy, pretty well designed box here. I like the addition of the wooden end panels. They don't look like particularly expensive wood, but nonetheless it does increase the aesthetic value of this product, I think. So we're all plugged in. I guess now we need to send it some notes and see what sort of sounds we can get out of it. In order to do that, let's jump back inside live and just do a little bit of that routing that we need to do to get these sounds out. Okay, so here we are back at the workstation. We've got our first MIDI track, so let's go with the standard formula now. We're going to insert our external instrument, okay? Now we need to send our MIDI out of the TC to go to the Hades, so let's select our TC port, and we're going to assume that this has been defaulted to MIDI channel 1, or perhaps an Omni, so it might receive on all MIDI channels. There isn't any documentation in the box, so again, we'd have to go online to find that. And then we're going to get our audio coming back in. Now, instead of selecting a stereo pair here, a 1 and 2. I'm actually going to go straight for just 1 because I know that this is mono, it's only coming in to audio input 1. Now, with a little bit of luck, when I press some keys on the push here, we're going to hear some noises. Result. Okay, so we've got sound, we can send notes, and we can manipulate the parameters on the top of the panel here. So let's... Okay, well, a very brief initial twiddle of the knobs there has been quite revealing. I mean, there's a very weighty, very rich sound coming out of this. The different waveforms here, the saw wave and the square wave, giving quite a nice tonal range. And then the two sub oscillators here, I'm not sure whether they're actually sub oscillators or whether they are simply magnifying lower harmonics. I've got a feeling they're probably sub oscillators. So yeah, we're getting a really weighty, really meaty sound out of that, which is great. Okay, and if we turn the LFO down to 0, it appears to have deactivated it. Now we could start experimenting with our one little patch cable here, see if we can modify these sounds a little bit. I'm going to go for a really obvious patch, just so that it's easily heard. But if I patch the LFO to the VCF, so that's the voltage controlled filter, that's the filter here, then hopefully we should be able to control or modulate the filter, that's this knob, using the LFO here. So it will go up and down at the rate that this LED is displaying, in theory. Okay, so that's kind of working. Interesting sound. Great. I mean, I'm having to control it from the push here, so I can play it directly on the pads on the push there. I could also, of course, go into live here, create a MIDI clip, and start programming in a little pattern, which I could play from here. Okay, I mean that's fairly interesting. Certainly a good bit of time to be invested in exploring the sound capabilities here. But at this stage, I just want to do something a little bit outside the box with this. So it will receive MIDI notes. What have I got that I could possibly send MIDI notes to it from? Okay, right, so that's added a whole new level to this situation.